Let the record reflect we've reconvened with all members present. As we rise for a Pledge of Allegiance, I ask to remain standing after the pledge. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I want to recognize two Madisonians we have lost in the past week. Our former fire chief, William Prentice, died at the age of 92. Bill joined the Madison Hook and Ladder Company in 1960 as a volunteer. He was later hired as a full-time firefighter in 1962, made the rank of second lieutenant in 72, promoted to captain May 14, 1973, and to chief on May 1, 1986. He retired as chief on June 20, 1989. He also served our country in the United States Navy, serving aboard the USS Winslow during World War II. And visitation, for those that want to know, will be Wednesday, May 24th from 4 to 7 at Borough's Core and Dangler, and the service at St. Vincent's at 10 a.m. Also this past week, we lost Councilmember Bob Silverstein. He served two terms from January 1, 1989 until December 31st, 1994. Bob, despite living in Madison for many years, never lost his southernisms, often saying y'all. And when he got upset during a council meeting, he would let it, dadgummit, slip out. But our thoughts go out to both the families of Chief Prentice and Council Member Silverstein. So please, a moment of silence and reflection. Thank you. So it's a little crowded right now, but after our proclamations, I think there might be a little thinning out of the room, so we should have seats for everyone after that occurs. Before I come down below for a couple of presentations, just a little information on the agenda today. We pretty much have only one agenda item on the discussion, which is the presentation will be on downtown revitalization from Urbanomics. This is also an advertised meeting for the DDC, so the Downtown Development Commissioners are in audience. I believe we have a quorum. Is that correct? Okay, we do. So when we get to, just for those that have come here for that presentation, we're changing up a little bit of a few things on the agenda. We will push back the reports from committees until after the presentation. The first invitation for discussion, which usually allows for comments on the discussion item, you will only be allowed to, at that time, comment on resolutions on the consent agenda, because we'll add an extra invitation for discussion. After the Urbanomics presentation, council members will have questions or comments. We'll also ask the DDC if they have any questions or comments, and then we will open it to the public. And then we'll go back to the agenda and have our normal comment period later on. And before I come down, I want to wish a happy birthday to Christine Lee, Madison Eagle reporter. Happy birthday, Christine. She's right in the front row as always. First, I want to introduce few people. Some faces will be familiar and some not so familiar. Let's start with Emily Weisenstein. Emily, are you here? Come on up, Emily. I'm going to have you come up here first before I invite a few others here. Emily is the children's librarian, in case you don't recognize her, at our great library. And what Emily did was put in a nomination to recognize our friends of the Madison Public Library. And they received the New Jersey Library Association Service Award at the association's conference on the 25th. So let me have Lynn Favreau, you're here. There you are, Lynn. Come on up. Our new library director, I can give her a chance to say hello in a second, for those who haven't met her yet. And Nancy, come on up, because you were in charge and, you you never really retire. And any other board members, board trustees, any friends of the library, please come on up. I'll let Emily say a few words as to why she made the nomination, and then she can hand off the plaque to the friends. But I want to thank you for stepping forward to make the nomination, because we truly have a treasure in the Madison Public Library, and it is many people that make that work, and many friends, as they say. And the friends of the Madison Public Library, we couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Emily, would you like to?
I wanted to nominate our friends. It was a small way for us to say thank you for everything that you do for us. These women volunteer so much of their time, and they do such an amazing job. They're truly outstanding. I brag to everyone that we have the best friends at the Madison Public Library, and it is thanks to them that we are able to have the money for new technology, that we are able to fund our popular summer reading program, and just to have all of these exciting things happening at the library all the time, and it really is through their efforts that we're able to do that. So I wanted to thank you for everything that you do, and you guys really are the best. So thank you.
And Lynn, since this is your first council meeting, how about a few words? Put you on the spot. If you don't know Mayor Conley by now, I've been known to just hand a microphone and say a few words.
Well, hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. I'm honored to be able to serve as your next library director, and big shoes to fill. Nancy has left such a legacy. And I'm so looking forward to working with everybody to build on our strengths and move forward and be everything that we can possibly be to the community as your needs and interests become obvious to us over the coming years. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And does any of the members of the Friends want to say a few words? Nope. Okay.
I just want to say that it's an honor and privilege to accept this award. And we'd like to thank Emily for nominating us. And I also want to thank the Madison community, who has generously supported all of our fundraising, because without your support, we could not do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work. Councilman Landrigan, please come forward with your other hat on. We have a proclamation. Are there any other Madison Volunteer Ambulance Corps members in the audience? All right, you have to go it alone here. We have two proclamations for you to share with the squad. and one is declaring Emergency Medical Services Week, May 21st through 27th. Whereas Emergency Medical Services, EMS, is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the Emergency Medical Services team are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas the Madison Volunteer Ambulance Corps has provided years of service at no cost to residents through dedicated volunteers, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate for those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas the members of the Emergency Medical Services team, whether career, volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services provided by designated Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, the Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby proclaim May 21st through May 27th as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme EMS Strong, Always in Service, in recognition for all those engaged in emergency medical services. And the second one, Emergency Medical Services for Children Day, May 24, 2017. Whereas more than 30 million children receive emergency medical care each year due to illness or injury. Whereas the needs of children are different than those of the needs of adults in medical emergencies. And whereas emergency medical services for children and tens of thousands of EMS providers and acute care professionals it serves, and the more than 25 professional organizations in which partners are committed to improving the quality of emergency care that children receive, and whereas it is proper and timely to bring recognition to the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services for children and the dedicated men and women who work tirelessly to improve the quality of pediatric medical care. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby proclaim May 24th as Emergency Medical Services Day for Children, and encourage residents to applaud and support the work of EMS personnel who provide emergency medical care to children as they continue to improve the quality of life of all children in our state. Thank you. Jim DeVivo, please come up. And do we have a few playwrights in the audience? All please come up. All our playwrights, come on up. Welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight. And you're welcome to stay for the presentation, but we'll understand if you have to go home and do other homework. Whereas Writers Theater, founded in 1986, has nurtured creative writing skills for all ages throughout New Jersey. Let me start again. This has been a long day. Whereas, I'm not an accomplished actor or anything. I'm just a mayor. Whereas the Writers Theater, founded in 1986, has nurtured creative writing skills for all ages through the New Jersey Writers Project. And whereas Writers Theater has produced performances and offered new plays to local and statewide audience as a result of its dedication to the prospective playwrights. And whereas Writers Theater brings a unique program to the community through its local in-school playwriting initiative, the Madison Young Playwrights Program. And whereas Writers Theater presented performances of student-written work during the in-school assemblies this spring. And whereas the Writers Theater has continually to receive a positive response from students, teachers, and parents for its effectiveness in working with all students, many of whom realize the benefits of self-discovery and expression through playwriting, prose, and poetry. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, do hereby proclaim May 2017 as Madison Young Writers Month. In doing so, I extend very best wishes to the Writers Theater and to all young writers in our community for continued growth and success. Further, I encourage public's participation in celebrating and commending our young playwrights for their creativity, artistry, and expression. So congratulations. And I'm going to put you on the spot right now and hand the microphone. I want you to tell me, or tell everyone, we're going to shift around so we can catch you on camera. So kind of rotate around here so everyone can. All right, so you tell me your name, your school, and the name of your play.
Donovan Perry, St. Vincent, and the Arena.
Isabella Sosiello of St. Vincent's and Boy World, Girl World.
Evelyn Giuliano, Torrey J. Elementary School, Someday Freedom.
Luke Showman, Torrey J. Elementary School, Robert House.
Nitra Basinger, Torrey J. Elementary School, and The Worst Day Ever.
My name is Sage Farnioli, and I go to CIS, and I wrote The Secret.
My name is Faz Yassine. I go to Kings Road School, and I wrote Stan, Super Awesome Detective.
My name is Arthur Basinger. I go to the Madison Junior School, and I wrote The Choice.
Jim, would you like to say a few?
My name is Jim DeVivo. I did not write a play, but I had the honor to facilitate this program now in its 31st year. The Madison Young Playwrights Festival is actually the first production that was produced by the theater back when we were called Playwrights Theater, and it's always been the great joy of our year we start the school year at each of the elementary schools and the junior school where the students come in and they have 10 weeks with one of our actors or directors or playwrights to create an original play that we then present in March. And we're happy to come here in May this year, as you heard, not only playwriting in the proclamation, but also poetry and prose. All of our programs have wrapped up, and so when one piece of writing is done, it's time to start the next one. And we're happy that with our new name, Writers Theater, last year, we were able to branch out and bring all these other genres to the schools. And we're very excited to hear what you're going to write again. And thank you all for writing. Thank you for sharing your children with us and encouraging them on this journey. Thanks for the recognition and for the support from the borough and the community. We are always thrilled to bring this to you. Thanks again.
There you go. All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Hold on. As mentioned, you're welcome to stay, but if you need to go home and do your homework, we'll let you head on out. We'll just hold a few moments. And just a reminder, as you go out, the halls do echo, so please keep conversations as if you're in the library. Yeah. And now as seats fill up, anyone that has had an SRO ticket, you can grab a seat. A couple of quick things before we get to our presentation. Any communications or petitions?
None received, Mayor.
All right, this is the first of 3 opportunities for the public to speak. Again, this is limited to any resolutions. So any of the resolutions, the consent agenda, if you wish to comment on those now, please step forward, state your name, your address, and the resolution you want to speak on. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting, and we move on to our one agenda discussion, downtown revitalization study. Urbanomics. Ben, you want to lead us off?
Thank you. Try and speak over the crowd.
Yes.
All right. To start out by saying the obvious, our historic downtown business district is obviously a key part of our community. And that makes it very important, if I may say imperative, that we focus on keeping it vibrant, both financially, keeping it vibrant and financially viable. Last year, there was a sense in the community, and certainly among a number of us, that the long and short-term stability of the downtown area needed some focus. The Downtown Development Commission appeared before the council, and they recommended that a third-party consulting company be hired to provide us with recommendations on actions we should take. The mayor approved the formation of a committee to include elected officials, DDC members, and other interested parties to examine the situation in detail and to facilitate hiring such a firm. I'm proud that I had the opportunity to chair this committee. Joining me were council members Bailey and Landrigan, DDC Program Director Lisa Ellis. I hope she doesn't mind my saying this, but I think she's the unsung hero of this project. Past DDC Program Director Mike Kopas, DDC members John Hoover and Russell Stern, John Morris, who's the president of the Madison Chamber of Commerce, and Melissa Griffey, who's a borough resident. The first step as a committee that we took was to analyze the situation, and indeed, we agreed that we needed outside expertise to assist us. The group was emphatic, and I hope we see that this evening as we go through the presentation, that we didn't want just another study that someone would feel we put on the shelf and call it a day. We were looking for actionable recommendations. We as a group drafted and then broadly distributed an RFP detailing what we wanted to derive from an outside consultant. Through extensive proposal reviews and on-site interviews, we identified Urbanomics as the firm with the expertise and experience that best suited our needs. Their study is now complete. Joining us this evening is Tina Lund, a principal at Urbanomics and the lead on the project. Before Tina presents her company's analysis and recommendations, I would like to announce that this report will be available on RoseNet, and there should be a link showing on the homepage of RoseNet to get you there. And as always, I might add that your input's encouraged. So as you read this, if you have any comments, concerns, please feel free to contact Lisa or contact me, and we'll do our best to address them. At subsequent meetings of both this council and the DDC, we anticipate discussing plans for rolling out various aspects of the recommendations that you'll hear tonight. I would now like to turn this over to Tina Lund to lead the discussion of the study.
Good evening, and thank you, Ben and Mayor Conley, members of the council, the DDC, who've been amazing, especially Lisa. She's very much sung in our book, and members of the community. My name is Tina Lund. I'm a principal with Urbanomics, and I'm joined tonight by Susan Favati, a principal with BFJ Planning, Lauren Renee, a traffic analysis and planner for BFJ, and also Greg Blackburn from Russell Urban Design. Russell Design, sorry, not urban. I'm going to do the presentation. I'm going to give you a brief overview of key points of analysis. The report is quite long and quite detailed. So we're going to get at the key points and then go straight to recommendations. I'm going to present the entire thing. My backup singers are here in case there are any questions that work to their areas of expertise in particular. So again, thank you, and I'll get started. So first of all, this whole effort was led by the Borough of Madison and the Downtown Development Commission, with our firms working together. The reason for this, as we saw it, is that downtown and retail market trends are changing quite quickly. This is driven by demographic and behavior changes, smaller households, people are starting families later, people are moving back to downtowns instead away from the suburbs, and people are more into experiences, not things. It's the new way of going about it. Retail is changing as well. National chains are closing locations. Store sizes are getting smaller. There's increasing competition from malls and the internet. And currently, food consumed outside the home is the only retail sector seeing growth in the last couple of years. So flexibility is the key. Things have been changing quickly, and they'll continue to change. So creating strategies that will allow for flexibility to capture what's going to happen next was something we were really focused on here. Our objectives, as stated in the RFP, were to identify and quantify market potentials for downtown Madison with respect to the market segments retail, dining, entertainment, personal and professional services, office, and housing. We were to identify an optimal tenant mix, developed market-based development strategies founded on that analysis, and then offer implementable recommendations for improvement. And that's what we certainly hope we've done. Initially, we had 7 different categories for pursuit, and we followed those, but we found that in organizing the study, it was best to condense and look at things in terms of community engagement, market conditions, and then the regulatory context, which includes both zoning and parking, and then placemaking, which also looks at branding, street furniture, and public art. In terms of community engagements, the first step we did was we had 5 focus groups on November 16th and 17th. One focused on seniors. The second was residents. The third was residents, both male and female. The fourth included business owners. We had 11 attendees there. And then our final focus group was the joint DDC and council meeting. It was rather amazing. All of our focus groups had very similar takes and views on things. First off, the advantages that they saw in Madison is it's a town that's classic Americana. It's a great community. Neighbors help neighbors. There's terrific infrastructure. It's walkable and safe for families. The location is terrific. It's near enough the city that commutation is possible, but far enough away that you don't feel like you're in the city. All of the events that are run by the various organizations, including the DDC and MACA, are huge assets. And people are very pleased with stores downtown in that they very much go the extra mile in terms of service. Challenges that the group saw, however, is that the downtown is starting to seem a little too sleepy, perhaps, maybe a little tired. There's a lack of variety, including grown-up options. That was something that came up a lot, grown-up options, things you can do without your children. There are fears that the service-to-retail ratio is too high. Store hours are too limited. You're not catching people as they're dropping their kids off after school or coming home on the train. There's no central gathering place, and Madison really seems to need a defined identity. Another thing that was found in all of the focus groups is there seems to be general feelings on what the barriers to success are. The first that came up very often was regulations prevent businesses from expanding or moving to Madison. That retail rents in Madison are way too high, especially compared to other communities in the region. And Madison does not do a good job of marketing itself. These are all things that in our analysis we wanted to answer and examine further. And then finally, the final thing that came out of the focus groups is there's very strong support for local businesses. Even people who said that they shop on the internet for 90% of the items they buy feel very strongly about the shop local movements, and they're really looking for a reason to spend more time in downtown Madison. So our next step, once we did our focus, was to take the hypotheses that came out of them and put them into a survey. We used a SurveyMonkey series for about a month, November 22nd through December 31st. We had 1,100 respondents who went through the entire thing, which is pretty amazing in a community of 16,000 people. 64% were female, 62 were between the ages of 35 and 54, 84% live in Madison. I mean, we've got a broad spectrum of people who live, work, commute, have businesses here in our findings. However, because there were some skews in this, especially in terms of income, 54% of respondents had incomes over $200,000. That does not actually reflect the income range in Madison very well at all. We knew from the beginning that this was going to be a qualitative analysis, that we were going to use it to get people's ideas and their survey. But in the end, the survey confirmed focus group opinions for the most part. The pros about Madison were the same. It's a great place to walk around and shop with your family. It's great service and friendly atmosphere. It's a convenient place to pick up necessities. However, variety is lacking, and sometimes price points are high for the variety that is here. 1 hour parking is not enough time for many activities, especially the service-based activities in the downtown, according to opinion. When we asked survey respondents what they would like to see in Madison that is not here now, bakeries, of course, came up very high at the top. 63.3% of survey respondents said they would love to shop in a bakery very often. A butcher followed. Women's clothing and shoes came next. And also they want to see cultural and entertainment facilities and other experience-based activities. Additional things like, pottery classes, like mud workshop, etc. Going from there, we did stakeholder interviews with key stakeholders. This included representatives from the borough, the DDC, the business community, the tech community, the arts community, Morris County Economic Development, the universities, and also commercial and residential real estate brokers. They, again, had much of the same input. Parking availability is always a question for new businesses seeking Madison space. But they really honed in on Madison not having a brand or a marketable identity. The other thing that came across was there's shared communications and marketing problem among different organizations. The Chamber of Commerce, the DDC, MACA, there are any number of organizations that do an incredible amount of work. They have so many events, but they sometimes feel that communications, they're not even sure what the other group is doing. So having a central point of communication for them was something that they saw would be a huge asset. And they do appreciate the work of the DDC and others, but they all were quick to acknowledge that volunteers have limits. It's your free time, your spare time, time you're taking away from your family. So there are limits to what a volunteer can do for you, even though they go above and beyond. So once we had these hypotheses or this input from stakeholders and the community, we went on to do our market review. And I'm just going to look at these very quickly. We did an inventory of existing businesses, looked at regional real estate and markets, comparing Madison to neighboring areas. We did a retail gaps analysis, and then did an estimation of unmet existing and future demand across different real estate sectors. Our study area was all of the commercially zoned area throughout Madison, including the downtown and the extended eastern commercial corridor. However, the main focus of our study was the downtown, as this is the downtown revitalization study. Our overall findings in doing the comparison, and this is detailed at length in the report, were that the business mix in Madison is very interesting. It actually has a greater retail to service ratio than any of the surrounding communities, including Morristown, Chatham. There's more retail here compared to other services than there are in other places. Rents here are indeed higher than in neighboring communities. However, vacancy rates are incredibly low.
So I was surprised about both those items. Number one, your survey of people said they thought there was too much service, not enough retail.
Yes.
And the general feeling in town, people always say there's a lot of vacancies, yet you're finding we have a very low vacancy rate relative to the area.
Yes.
Any reason why those two things happen?
I think because the vacant stores are very obviously located. They're on key corners, and they're larger spaces than many of the stores in.
And the mix that people think is out of whack?
I think that's just an aspect of the change. Everything that new that seems to be opening up seems to be a yoga studio or something to do with physical fitness. But that's the trend throughout the region. And retailers will, or commercial developers will tell you, lots of people go through those doors, so they actually create a lot of pedestrian traffic. So they're not necessarily a bad thing. The other thing that we discovered when we looked at the market analysis is that there's a huge amount of leakage. People who live in Madison are not spending their money in Madison. They're spending it outside, which was not completely unexpected. To give you a little idea, because rents came up so often as an issue, Madison is the purple bar. This is an 8-year survey of rents. Madison does have the highest rents in all years except for 2008 compared to Morris County as a whole, Florham Park, Maplewood, and Morristown. However, when you look at retail vacancy rates, Madison has by far the lowest rates almost in every year. And in 2016, and this is according to a commercial service that has a full survey of all commercial space in the county, the retail vacancy rate was 1.4%, which is incredibly low. So it makes sense that rents are quite high because supply and demand. However, as far as retail gaps are concerned, you can see the areas that the areas to the left are areas in which money from outside of Madison is likely coming in. Number one, grocery stores. That's likely thanks to Whole Foods. Areas where money is going out include everything from special food services on the low end at about $200,000 a year to sporting goods at $1.5 million, all the way up to motor vehicle and parts distributors at $50 million a year that's going elsewhere. However, what that translates to in terms of actual demand for space, we did some.
So one question, can you go back for a second?
Sure.
You're saying we're leaking restaurants?
Actually, people are coming in to go to restaurants here.
I thought the way you read the. Okay.
So the left is incoming, leakage is to the right. Oh, yes, actually, yeah, we are leaking restaurants. People who live in Madison are spending restaurant money elsewhere.
So that means we don't have enough restaurants.
Yes.
What people want to spend.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Guess that generated some mumble. Okay.
All right. That really set up a wave.
Food will do that, but please, if everyone can be quiet first.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll try to get through.
Had dinner at Blue Wasabi earlier, and it was packed. Of course, it's also Monday, so lots of places are closed, but it was packed. It was standing room. So when you look at how this translates into supportable floor space, what one does is you look at average sales per square foot in the region and divide that unmet local demand by that, and you come up with the floor space that could be suited just to meet Madison's demand. This doesn't look at people who could be coming in from elsewhere. This is just Madison's demand. When you do this, you also want to look at what's appropriate for downtown. Looking at the downtown study area, it's not the place for a car dealership. So right there, we kind of cut that off the board. You don't necessarily want a car dealership in. classic Americana downtown Madison. It's fine on the rest of the corridor. So the most supportable shops, according to retail demand, are clothing and clothing accessory stores at about 13,000 square feet. Clothing is 10,000 of that. Accessories are the rest. Restaurants and other eating places, about 6,000 square feet. Furniture and home furnishing stores, 46,000 or 4,600 square feet. Electronics and appliances, miscellaneous retailers, sporting goods, hobby, etc. However, just because something, drinking places, alcoholic beverages, showed no demand whatsoever, that there's a surplus already in town. However, alcohol, much like restaurants, you could never really have too many. Of course, there's the issue of liquor licenses. You can't have too many in terms of building your downtown. So this is just, the hard number variety. However, what we also want to do is take a look at this through the lens of who lives here right now and what those people tend to spend their money on. And so to do that, we looked at psychographics, which is the sometimes silly-sounding marketing terms used by people who do their retail siting to describe people who live here. In any place, really. So the largest segment of the population are the urban chic. They're 40-somethings. They have decent incomes, about $100,000 per person or per household, and they spend their time on travel and sporting activities and food. Then there's the top tier. Those are the folks who live in really nice, large houses. They, too, spend their money on travel, their local money on very high-end things, such as one would find at the Short Hills Mall, and also food and wine. There is the golden years segment, mostly retirees, also very interested in books, travel to the extent that they do, less so into food and restaurants. And then finally, the smallest segment at about 10% is trendsetters. And these are the folks who have just graduated from college in their late 20s, early 30s. They've decided that they may work in the city, but they want to live here in a beautiful small town. So once you look at those characteristics, that kind of looks further at what people are most likely to shop at, what is most supportable by the existing residents, and that is clothing and clothing accessories, especially in terms of workout wear, tennis shoes, that sort of thing, which actually fits in with the number of gyms and spas and boxing gyms happening right now. Restaurants and other eating places, sporting goods, hobby book and music stores, and special food services. Now, the thing that makes this seeking out these stores difficult is the competition in the near proximity. There are 18 shopping centers within 10 miles of downtown Madison. 4 of these with 1.4 million square feet of commercial space are within 5 miles. And these are at the three key points. There's the low end, the high end, and the middle end within that 5-mile radius. And the key thing about having these shopping malls with major national labels is that there are radius restrictions. For most stores who go into a major commercial center, their leases require that they cannot open another store within a certain radius of that existing store. So a lot of national labels are kind of out for Madison simply because of proximity to the Short Hills Mall, etc. In addition, there are pretty active retail areas in other places, especially Morristown. Morristown is really booming at the moment. There are various other competition from Florham Park and Chatham to a lesser extent. Sorry, Susan. And then the biggest competition of all at the moment is the internet. More and more people are doing their shopping online. as did the majority of survey respondents and focus group members, regardless of age. But there's still hope. That just means focusing any retail search on local Madison brands or local New Jersey brands, things that are more likely to work in downtown. Office demand, I didn't even bother putting a chart up. There's no office demand to speak of really at the moment. Most commercial vacancies are office vacancies on upper floors. There still aren't that many of them, but still. There is a strong tech community in Morris County. The tech meetup has something like 15,000 members. They don't all meet at once, but they do get together at Fairleigh Dickinson and at venues in Madison and elsewhere. And their potential market for limited office space, especially startup space. But the more obvious demand would be for housing. Looking at projected population increases for Madison in the next 5 years and the average household size, there's probably total demand for another 110 new units coming from the expected population growth in Madison in the next 5 to 10 years. All of that will be eaten up for the most part by Green Village Apartments. However, within the 5-mile radius, there's potential for another 2,000 new units, or there will be demand for another 2,000 new units within the next 5 to 10 years. If Madison wanted to capture some of that demand at various points, it could be, 10% of that is 200 units, 15% is 300, 25%, which is, holding the bar pretty high, is 500 units. Getting additional housing in downtown on Main Street just by allowing an extra floor above retail could help increase density, which would help support local retailers. But again, that's a decision to be made. And even if it were to be allowed, it wouldn't happen all at once. It would be up to individual property owners. Looking at the type of housing involved, the thing that's most interesting here is that most of the housing units in Madison are single-family, 3-4 bedrooms. But the interesting thing here is that more than 30% of the borough's population is in non-family households. So that's single person or 2 people who are unrelated or roommates. And that's usually a smaller unit size. So it could be, new graduates from the universities here. And that's actually a higher percentage than any place in the area other than Morristown.
I'm sorry, where am I on that? I'm two people living together without children.
2 people living together. Do you have a formal relationship, a formalized relationship?
You're married.
Yes. If you are married...
You set yourself up for that question.
If you're married or in a civil partnership, then you are considered a family, even if there are no children involved.
Okay.
And if you are, a single adult with or without minor or adult children, you are still considered a family. It's the unrelated or individuals who live alone count. So what that goes to say is there's probably demand for smaller sized housing units, the sort of thing that work for infill in a downtown. So the findings in and about all of that, and I swear to you this is the longest section before we get to recommendations, because the market's the most important as far as I'm concerned. So commercial vacancies are quite low, so rents are correspondingly high. So it's not a matter of landlords who want more than their fair share. It's a matter of the market. It's market dynamics. There is demand for some retail and housing in Madison. There's no demand for additional office space, really, but flexibility is really the key. Marketing efforts should focus on underserviced sectors with local food or experience focus. And the other thing that came out of this is Madison is very much in need of a cohesive identity. with a branded marketing plan. So now that we've discovered there's really not a huge difficulty in any of the major market sectors, there's nothing that Madison is doing wrong. There's no major problem that needs to be overcome. It's a matter of what can be done to make things more friendly to businesses coming in. So we did a regulatory review. We looked at zoning, development plans, the approvals process to look for to identify barriers to development, and then we looked at parking, because parking is always key in getting a retailer in. So we did parking counts. Lauren did parking counts and intercept surveys and reviewed parking policies with the Borough Police Department. So in the end, we've discovered that many of the regulatory barriers have been removed in recent rezoning work. However, that information has not necessarily disseminated through the business community, because there was a lot of misinformation coming up in focus groups, et cetera, and also in comments from the survey. So there's a matter of communication of what's happened recently. Zoning regulations could be adjusted further to better allow infill development of housing with that goal of increasing population density. And there are several strategies to be implemented to improve parking management that would not require the construction of a commuter parking structure at this time. Everything gets implemented and everything can be assessed, but it should not be required right now. Looking at parking, one of our tasks was to map things out, where all the lots are, and to do parking counts. The Waverly lot is near capacity on weekends, but all other lots are at less than 85% occupancy on average. Lauren, do you want to point? Up on the top?
Yes.
Yes. It's the one that's the most difficult to find. You can entrance on Greenville Road, and then you exit on
We're getting a pointer for you here. A laser.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim. Sure. Okay. So this one, Waverly Green. Commuter lots in Waverly Green are at capacity during the week, running at 95%, while others throughout the area are between 54 and 82%, which is considered working capacity. And on-street parking, as expected, peaks at noon and in the early evening. And there's great detailed tables in the appendices looking at each segment of street and its parking occupancy at multiple hours per day on weekends and during the week. It's kind of amazing if you're into that sort of thing. Then we also looked at placemaking. We looked at facades, signage, and gateway signs. The wayfinding pilot program was reviewed. We looked at some very preliminary branding recommendations and also places for community interaction. Because the more community interaction there is, the more a retailer is more likely to want to be sited next to that interaction. So our overall findings here were the facade and signage review is fine. There are aspects that could be made more obvious at the beginning of the process, but other than that, it's great. Branding should focus on the community identity and culture and the larger history of Madison. There's a lot here, and as you go through the process, that will be focused and uncovered. Gateways and wayfinding signage should be uniform and should meet legibility standards and best practices to be seen both from vehicles as well as pedestrian spots. And I'll be showing a map in a bit that shows where we think the primary, secondary, and destination signage should be. And if there are questions on that, Greg can answer those. Alleys and underpasses, the ways that we get from the commercial corridors to the parking lots, have a lot of potential in terms of placemaking and as places to display public art. In addition to that, public art should be incorporated in opportunity areas throughout the corridor. There are also great spots in the park area next to the METC. There's lots of potential there. And from there, we're going to jump into all of the recommendations. So in terms of business development, our first goal is to streamline the business attraction development process and marketing efforts. And for that, we really do recommend hiring a downtown manager. I had the opportunity to talk to the downtown manager from Morristown and from Westfield, and having one person, one source to whom the borough can go, incoming businesses can go, realtors can go, is really key in terms of making sure everyone's on the same page and everything is communicated, and groups can go to that same person as well. Creating a branding identity. As we were told was going to be planned, a firm is going to be hired to find the brand for historic downtown Madison. Historic is our idea. Eliminate barriers to business, create and maintain a central list of commercial availabilities. One of the things we discovered is because so many properties are owned privately, they're not necessarily shown by a broker or realtor, so they don't make a lot of obvious internet lists. So if somebody's looking, they won't necessarily find it. And Morris County Economic Development does not keep a list either. So there's usually the county is a good source to go to. In this case, Morris County does not do that, so it's kind of up to the borough. Capture a greater share of existing market is our goal. Extend business hours. It's something fairly easy to do as long as there's staffing, and that, of course, is always a question. But extend those hours to capture the morning and evening markets. Extend the social media reach. A lot is being done already with the Facebook page and Twitter, but creating profiles of existing businesses and promoting them on Pinterest and through the other social media options is great. Tweeting regularly about downtown events and programs. And there are also a lot of new apps that are being used to throw out beacons, encouraging people to shop when they get into proximity to the store. I mean, that really reaches to the very app addicted, but there are people going to stores, so especially the younger ones. Enhance regional marketing, place promotional materials in area hotels, transit hubs, recreational areas. And you have the practice field for the Jets not far away, and it would be a great place for people who go to watch practice to, pick up something and know that, oh, Madison is right down the road, we should go there for lunch afterwards. Publicize Madison as a business-friendly community. Develop a guide to locating a new business here, part of the making the business-friendly aspect. Market to target demographics, and that ties into the app use. Focus promotions on target audiences, local workforce. Geralda Farms is picking up new businesses all the time. Expanding existing programs to bring people in to town for lunch. University students. When we spoke with university students, they were very excited to take the Madison tour at the beginning of the year. And they loved, the free lunch that they got and the discounts they got. But they said they didn't tend to come back to town until their parents came for Parents' Weekend. And, promoting further, and I think actually having more connection at the north end of Main Street will actually help with that, with the establishment of the Green Village development. And also arts outreach. So much is being done. There are so many festivals and storytelling shows that are happening, and people are coming from out of town, but they're going to the show and, grabbing a cup of coffee at, Drip, if that's the venue where things are located, but not going further into Madison. So better communication and, promotional cross-hatching with them would be great. As far as targeted new business attraction, focus on stores meeting that local tapestry segmentation needs. Firms with local appeal, such as New Jersey Made, would be terrific, as well as those that provide activities along with sales. And in terms of creating that grown-up atmosphere, there are several workarounds for the liquor license limitations, if that's the direction you want to go in. I know I heard from many people, Madison doesn't want to be a college drinking town, and that's absolutely understandable. But the number of people who wanted a place to go for a glass of wine or a cocktail, and there are some interesting things that can be done there, involving partnerships between restaurants and local wine and liquor stores that will deliver bottle service only. Looking at regulatory recommendations, zoning, establish a threshold for when parking will trigger a site plan approval. There already is one, might want to be shrunk a little bit so that coffee shop can throw in a table without a problem. Exempt all non-residential uses from providing off-street parking. Streamline general and specific design standards in the zoning code, section 195.24 to be specific. Increase allowable building heights from 3 to 4 stories in CBD zone areas. And Susan, hop in here. This is not entirely completely correct. There's a limitation on this that didn't make it into the matrix.
There's a lot of streets on here, but I believe in the report it's clear that the possible 4th story would be along the railroad track and in areas that do not abut residential zones. So it's meant to be very limited in a way that would not affect views, not affect the impacts on single-family residential neighborhoods. And it's one option for potentially increasing your population downtown, as well as giving some incentive for the owner of a single-story building, some additional incentive to maybe redevelop that property. That extra story gets you a little bit more bang for your buck than just 2 additional stories above. So one option to consider.
Thanks, Susan. Balance new development with historic preservation. Downtowns are changing, Madison is changing, but you don't want to lose the quality that makes Madison Madison. So to make sure that this, happens, integrating historic preservation commission reviews into the approvals process from the beginning is probably a good idea. That way, it doesn't go through approvals and then go to historic preservation and then have to come back. This way, everybody looks at it from the beginning and they can move forward together, and it doesn't add that extra step in the loop. Appoint a DDC representative to the TCC for development applications within the downtown. Add up to 500 new studio and or 1-bedroom housing units through infill housing. Again, just allowing that to happen won't make it happen, but it'll give property owners an incentive to redevelop. Yeah.
How would that impact our parking, though?
Studio and 1-bedroom units should not have too much of an impact. I mean, especially if they're right next to the train station, they would be considered TOD. But it may well
I mean, even if we generated 100 extra cars that had to park downtown, how much would that impact our parking right now?
That might require structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat, just trying to keep it flowing.
Yeah.
You know what, Bob, it's a presentation, and we didn't get it in advance, so I can't sit here and make notes.
Okay.
The presentation?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Keep
going.
Keep rolling there. Thank you.
All right. There's not much left. It's all right. Also, storefront and signage guidelines. Signage guidelines right now are an internal document, and that's fine, but it might be useful to have some of the specifications that are looked at available publicly, so property owners know or store owners know what they need to do before they come into the process or before they come before the board. Okay. Parking. Better managed parking supply is the goal. Encourage merchants to park further away from businesses to make spaces available for customers. Mark parking spaces on streets such as Cook Avenue and Elmer Street to encourage parking on underutilized streets. People don't necessarily know that the parking is there. Revise on-street regulations in the commercial core. A 1-hour time limit is sometimes not useful. You need at least 2 hours to use services, go to restaurants, etc. The borough should also consider increasing short-term parking adjacent to grab-and-go type businesses, of 15 minutes there or half an hour there instead of an hour or 2 hours. Next recommendations there, increase the number of night and weekend parking spaces in permit lots closest to the commercial core during the nights and weekends, such as the Maple Avenue lot in particular. Conduct periodic occupancy counts to monitor changes and inform future decisions. Better manage commuter parking. Right now, it's very, very full. However, limit the number of permits held by each household or raise the price of successive permits. Promote use of alternative transportation to the station, Uber, biking, etc. Improve parking enforcement. Implement graduated parking fines to discourage repeat offenders. Your first one's X dollars. Your fifth one's much more. Update the borough's code to reflect current regulations. The current code does not reflect on- and off-street parking regulations as they stand and lists outdated parking permit fees. It's on Code 360. Update to electronic pay kiosks at train station and Kings Road lots. The next goal is to encourage park and walk. Invest in streetscape improvements along walking routes between underutilized parking and the commercial core. And I'll show you some examples of that. Possibly improving lighting and street furniture along Kings Road and the train underpasses. Improve parking wayfinding signage at gateways to encourage visitors to park in lots located south of the tracks. And create a marketing campaign to communicate the benefits of park and walk, such as health benefits, etc. Street furniture. Place trash cans at every heavily trafficked crosswalk and at the egress of each parking lot or community space. I mean, there are a lot there already, but just make sure there's full coverage, and that'll help with some of the trash complaints. I haven't seen a lot myself, but I did hear from several store owners that they were concerned about that. The other main street furniture improvement we'd like to see are bike racks. Bike racks should be located throughout the downtown, not just under the underpasses. Likely sites would include at the bike shop and at the Waverly Place median. Perhaps survey businesses to determine if they would like to see a bike rack there. Signage improvement. Develop universal signage standards to be used throughout Madison in keeping with the branding and marketing plan developed under the separate contract. Place gateway signage in positions as mapped, and you'll see that in the next slide. Replace existing signage with unique downtown Madison sign family that can be designed for most sign instances, and that certain size directionals identification could be retrofitted to the existing furniture. And public art. Public art should be incorporated where possible, whenever possible. And this could range the gamut from student competitions to juried installations. And so primary gateways. Anytime anyone is entering the downtown core, they should know they're in Madison. So from the north up here, again, as you're coming in on Main, the east-west corridors as well, right by the Hartley building. partly Dodge. Here on Waverly Place, that's both a destination sign and here. Because once you're at Waverly Place, you're obviously in the heart of downtown Madison, as well as gateways under each of the underpasses and coming in along Main Street from Chatham. Now, as far as gateway signage is concerned, we had Russell do some renderings looking at ideas, and I just popped a few of them in here. This is 3 different examples of gateway signage. This one in particular with the ridges is actually based on detail from one of the historic buildings in town. And as you see, it welcomes you to Madison. It gives whatever the branding identity will be. It also directs you to parking. So you know as you're coming in where you can go to park. And then the final sign here is a destination sign giving pedestrians a little bit of the history of the town. So something like that could be developed. And now the most fun slide to end on. These are Jonathan Martin, an urban designer at BFJ, came up with some recommendations for things that could be done to the alleys or perhaps underneath the underpasses. So this was kind of an interesting one, changing the, this was the Elmer Street alley, and this was done to scale. He did actually a tracing over the top of the photograph, so this is what would actually fit there. Changing the paving, doing a green wall up the side, doing some general repair and maintenance on the walls. People seem, building owners are, taking care of it as they can, but having a uniform way of going about that. And including ballards and plinths for seating. And then here to the other side, we have possible ideas for what could be done on the underpasses to make passing under the train tracks more attractive. The top one he refers to as backlit noodles. So that's actually an installation of noodles of steel. They also are perforated, so with the backlighting, you can actually have polka dots on the ground or stars or whatever you want. There are examples of those in existence in the report. And then concept 2 is the glowing stripes, and these are LED strips that would be a very brightly lit and colorful gateway into downtown from outside. But they're just a couple of ideas. And I'm going to leave you with that, a little creativity to think about, and open the floor to questions if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, so obviously a lot of information. A reminder to all, this is a report with recommendations. This is not final solutions, and so I don't want anyone to say, well, what does it mean to add extra floors, what it's going to do with parking, and so on. We have very thorough processes to analyze all this good information and decide what is best for Madison, but it is a lot of good things, and it's good to see a lot of the short-term ones already underway, or we can almost put a check mark done off of them.
I mean, so much is being done already. It's this, in many ways, some of this was to formalize what's already being done already by the borough and the DDC.
So questions and comments from the council? Bob?
First, I thought this was great. Okay. You did a great job with it. And my pick is the psychedelic one at the bottom. Somebody going to a restaurant at night, having a couple of glasses of wine and going to that. No, but I really do like that one.
Some of them are even kaleidoscopic.
There you go.
I've walked through some, yeah. Yeah.
A couple of drinks after that.
No,
I don't know how safe those are to drive through when they're, spinny.
Kidding aside now. Yeah. Sorry. Kidding aside now. If you go down Park Avenue, there's a great deal of development going on.
Yes.
Businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit upon something which kind of strikes home to me is during the lunch hour, I believe most of the parking in Madison is pretty much filled up. There's a great opportunity, I think, to draw those people from those businesses downtown. Did your study, I know you focused on Madison a lot, but did you go to those businesses? I know they're building new ones right now. I mean, there's a lot of people down there that could potentially take advantage of our restaurants and shops during the lunch hour. But if there's not enough parking, they can't do it.
Right. That's one of the sub-points of targeted marketing with new businesses, is to reach out and see who would be interested in perhaps supporting a program or a shuttle or something that would help bring people downtown. The difficulty we run with there is a lot of businesses don't want their employees to leave site at lunch. So, but finding someone, there has to be ways, or even happy hours.
Yeah.
After work, bringing people into town.
I mean, there's so many coming in down there.
Yes.
And even the long-term hotel. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think what would benefit this town is if we could find a way to make it easy for them to get in and get out quickly. To me, that's probably part of it, but they're not going to walk.
Yes.
Thank
you. Maureen?
When you were looking at parking and ways of freeing up parking spaces, did you consider a combination free and paid parking? For example, your first hour would be free, and then the subsequent 15-minute increments would be paid off of a wall, one of these computerized kiosks.
Lauren, if you want to speak to that.
So, given the goals of the study, we want to make sure that coming to Madison remains competitive. Oh, sorry. We want to, speaking to the goals of the study, we want to make sure that Madison remain competitive. So, we did not consider, a pricing structure like that, which, by the way, can sometimes be very difficult to communicate the rules, but also to enforce, especially on an on-street basis. So what we want to do is try to encourage turnover on street as much as possible through regulations, but not at this point. We're not recommending implementing pricing.
Free parking is very much an asset for Madison right now.
Pat, and then Carmela. I always forget Carmela. I said Pat first.
Yeah. Oh, he said you first. But anyway, so two questions. One, you mentioned short-term parking. Is that easy to manage if you have like a 15-minute grab-and-go type spots, whether it's on the street or in the parking lots behind some of the businesses?
Just stand.
Yeah. Don't get too far from the microphone.
Yeah. A lot of the questions are going to be for you.
With the parking meters, I mean, yes, depending on how many rounds of enforcement you have.
I mean, if you're talking about maintaining free parking.
Maintaining free parking, yeah. I mean, it's really, you just have to have constant enforcement.
Which means you have to have somebody who was standing in the lot. I mean, if you're talking about 10 or 15 minutes, that's not a very long time. So it's not like you can swing through every hour and a half, mark the cars.
Right, well, it's... yeah, I mean, you would have to do a lot more rounds.
Okay.
So, yeah, there would be an increased cost in enforcement.
Okay. And then going back to one of your slides, you were talking about the surplus and the outflow. A couple of the businesses that provide a lot of the money coming into Madison are businesses we really wouldn't want to see leave, like grocery stores.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay, so when you look at that, when you look at the fact that our vacancy rate is typically pretty low, it means it's going to be challenging to find places to put some of the businesses you think that we need to attract to kind of generate more buzz or activity or a grown-up feel downtown. I mean, I don't know if you had a slide that talked about the turnover rate in businesses, but,
No, there's not a slide for that. The good news is right now the retail sweet spot, according to realtors, is between 1,000 and 2,500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So Madison, and smaller is generally better.
Okay.
So Madison actually does fairly well there. In terms of grocery stores, you're covered there. Lots of people are coming in to go to Whole Foods. So
No, I understand that, but I'm saying in terms of trying to create the space for the businesses you say we would like to attract, trying to figure out, without adding additional capacity of retail space, how do we do that with the existing stock, given that we don't want to push a lot of the businesses that are on one end out, and on the other hand, we don't have a lot of free space typically at any given time.
in this instance, it's really more of an idea of looking at who you should target. Like when you're talking to people, we are not suggesting by any means that anybody should be pushed out. I mean, it's the vacancy rate you have is much to be desired. So it's just, looking to the future, space becomes available, who should, the efforts be focused at attracting.
Public will be a little bit later, sorry. Yeah, I'll let you know when. It's Carmela's turn right now, though.
This is a great presentation. This is awesome. I actually read it, and it's a huge report. And if anybody has ever seen this, there's so much detail in here. And what kind of concerns me is that one of the things that you talked about immediately was the amount of work that the Downtown Development Commission does, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. They're all volunteer people. And, I'm looking at your recommendations. Some of them are very easy. Some we're already starting to do. But, a thought kind of crossed my mind today. Well, if each section is taken over by maybe a borough department or whatever to work on, say, you want the zoning regulations changed, or the planning board, or working with that particular zoning officer in order to create a good business plan for new businesses coming in. So that's one section. The signage is another that could go into the public safety factor and whatever. So I was kind of thinking that because these are volunteers, these are great recommendations. So you want to make sure that you're working through them, and you need people to do that. So I'm just kind of throwing that out at that point. I absolutely agree with you. You used two really good words, a cohesive identity, brand, and marketing plan. It's something that I have thought for many, many years, is that what we need. You can go to a town like Chester, and Chester, when you think of Chester, you think of, going to the antique stores and whatever. So why would you come to Madison? That's why the brand, and if it's for the restaurants, that's fine. Let's play it up, do whatever is needed. I also agree with you about the communication regarding the zoning codes. We make changes lots of times, and it just doesn't, that communication doesn't always filter down. So I'd like to see a lot more of that. I absolutely agree with that. But for the most part, this was very interesting to read. If anybody gets a chance, take a look at it, because there's some good material in here. I did have a question. It bothered me, and I'm not sure if I was correct. But one of the things that you talked about towards the back of this was identifying Madison on a sign as Madison Historic District or Downtown Madison Historic District. Am I correct? Because you identified 3 ways that were known, and those are 2, and then it was the Rose City. But your recommendation did not mention that we should keep that identity as the Rose City.
We did not.
Yeah. Okay, so I was right. Yeah, I was right about that. Okay.
We did not. It was our understanding from beginning that there was going to be a marketing firm that would come in and do a branding. Rose City is a very small portion of Madison's history. So when different ideas were thrown out and developed by Russell Design.
So it's
looking
just
at a larger
design.
Scale. These are just examples.
Designs of signage, more or less.
Yes.
You're not. concept of the Rose City. I mean, because when you come into Madison, there's big, huge signs that say, welcome to the Rose City, East End and West End. Okay, so.
When you go forward with it, the final recommendation may well be that Rose City is kept.
All right, just a question.
Oh.
Thank you.
Greg, do you want to?
I can jump in here.
Sure.
Yes, that would probably be good.
Thank you for your attention to the document, Carmela. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
What we found, and I'm a nearby resident myself, and I come in to Whole Foods here because I don't want to go to a big box Whole Food over in Vauxhall or whatever. So I appreciate the sort of level of what's left of New Jersey towns and smaller towns and, places that aren't just complete commercially branded places. So as I was trying to learn more about the history of Madison itself, and, it's 1889 isn't, we talk about historic downtown, but 1889, it's not, crazily historic of a date. Doesn't go, a lot of towns, Newark is from 16-something. So what I thought is that I started to look at the Lenape and the Dutch and the different kind of eras of how Madison formed. And Madison actually, the name Madison came along, I guess, or it was incorporated in the 1800s. So, and it just seemed like there was a broader history, and that with new kinds of almost boutique businesses coming in, and again, these grown-up experiences, there were a couple of neat models for using taglines instead of identifiers. So it would be sort of like, come in and shop, eat, and enjoy, or it's a welcoming community. So those kind of things kind of define the character of the experience of the place more than what is Rose? I don't know what Rose City means, It's until you read that on an interpretive or in some kind of, go back and look it up on Wikipedia or something. It's the Rose City, but there's no sort of evidence of that left. And it's kind of an abstract thing to use as an identifier. It seems almost decorative, there's no sort of purpose for it.
I think that our signs have really been saying, downtown historic Madison.
Yeah.
I'm a realtor, so when I write a description of how far a house is, I use that in my description. It's, historic downtown Madison.
That's what spoke to us,
I don't have a problem with that because we're really used to that kind of signage already, because that's what technically is being used all over. But that it was just I wanted to find out what your concept was and why that we weren't still utilizing. I don't see any reason why we still can't utilize the Rose City. I mean, you could go out of this town into other towns and tell them that you live in Madison. They'll say, "Oh, that's the Rose City." Believe it or not, that's part of the heritage here. And I'm not saying it has to be on every single sign, but we have.
I think that's the point. Yeah.
We have a rose. Yeah. That's a very defined object on everything that we do.
And there was also another. I'll just make another very small point. There are some of the commercial businesses are called Rose City this and Rose City that. So it's kind of like if you have the main identifier competing with, a transmission shop, for example, it might not be the strongest. Like you said, it shouldn't go away. Obviously, it's an important part of the history and the identification. So that was the rationale.
Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this that when we first got together, branding and marketing was on the list. I think what this served to do was two things. One, to convince us that it really is important and something we need to do. And secondly, that it's not easy. And so we decided to make it a separate effort in the future. But on the other hand, what Urbanomics did as part of this report laid the groundwork for us and did the convincing that I think we needed as a group.
And I think just looking at our list of recommendations, I think one of the first things will happen is adding two columns, which is the obvious who's going to be the primary person. For example, there's some things related to the planning board will become planning, and who's secondary. There's going to be overall committee to look at these things. And just like any other report, some recommendations will say, well, that was a good idea, but no, it's not Madison. And some will be, we should have thought of it sooner.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to get Maureen, and then we'll get DDC comments and questions, and then open it to the public.
May I actually interject something else to one of Carmela's other points? Is, recommendations that would be taken by different departments, and that's fine, but I really do feel it's the whole issue of like zoning regulations not being disseminated throughout. It really is key to have a point person whose job it is to keep on top of all of the things that are involved in the downtown revitalization plan.
And that's your first recommendation.
And
Right,
that's
exactly.
And that's my question. That's the downtown
manager.
So obviously, we paid a lot of money for this study. We should take the first recommendation. We're going to be looking for a downtown manager. What are we looking for?
What you're looking for is somebody who has an understanding of how Madison works, the real estate market, how Borough Hall works, how all of the agencies work, and how they work together and how they don't work together. Usually, if it's somebody new, they can learn it, but it takes a little time, but it's great if somebody has the background already who's been involved. But it is somebody who has an understanding of how all of the activities happen and how they work and play together.
They need to know the rules and regulations, but we don't need someone to recite them word for word. They need to be a great hand holder and get them from point A to point B and say, yes.
Someone, it's very much a social skill job. You need to know how to work with a lot of different types of people and understand how they tick and how things come together in a way that will, forward any plan as expeditiously as possible, with as little fuss as possible.
Sounds good.
Oh, Susan, jump in.
Not to rain on your parade, but I think you also want a pretty dynamic person who's sort of clued into different sectors. And you have some really good examples in surrounding towns. The Westfield downtown manager is great. We've both seen her speak. Montclair has a relatively new downtown manager who's very dynamic as well. And people come from varied backgrounds, but they all sort of bring an enthusiasm and, like Tina said, an ability to work with a lot of different people. And social skills is a big part of it. Having good connections, but also having that technical background is important.
All right. Anyone from the DDC wishing to comment or ask questions? Nope, then I will, no one from the DDC, so I'll open up to the public. Just as we'll follow our usual guidelines, 3 minutes, because I'm sure there'll be questions and comments that'll be in there. If you have any questions, we'll capture your questions and then answer it when you finish. So please step forward, state your name, your address, and write the same on the clipboard, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, I will give you a 1 minute warning because we're generous. And at 4 minutes, we'll stop. But again, I will capture your questions and answer them at the end of your comment.
Hi, my name is Ronald Hendrickson. I live on Green Avenue, and I want to applaud you for putting together this comprehensive plan. I'm a unique resident in that I live here, and I commute by bike into New York City. So I think the idea of having someone that looks at the overall plan is absolutely critical. So I heard something about a downtown manager, someone who's thinking about this all the time. Fabulous, really good things. Just a couple comments. I'm a research scientist, so I'm going to question some things in your slides just to put it out there. So nothing personal, but I'm data-driven, so I want to kind of dig into that. But I did have some general comments. One was there's an idea out there to put granite cobblestones in the sidewalks to have a unifying look in the downtown, but also as you go over them, you bump and you slow down. So that might be something to think about. I like the thing about Madison being downtown USA. I love that. It reminded me of Disneyland when I was a kid, right? Beautiful place. But one thing about Disneyland that was really special is it was clean and well kept. So I think what we should consider for downtown Madison is how are we keeping it clean and how are we keeping it well kept? Now, I just went to a downtown business, scooping ice cream. My daughter's there scooping ice cream. So it's just there before here. And the sidewalks are just filthy. So what you really need to do is steam clean those sidewalks because they look terrible. And they probably need them like 3 years ago. So those are really simple things to do to clean things up. Another thing is that we have this National Historic District. So some people had this vision to maintain, history without bulldozing it down. Now, I lived in Seattle, and I studied architecture before I found out I wasn't very good at it. But there was a time when the Pike Place Public Market in Seattle in the 1970s was going to be bulldozed, right? And there was a small group of people that said, oh, no, that's our identity. You can't do that. And they said, no, it's a blight on the city. Bulldoze it. And so they saved it. Now when you go to the city, that is the gem. That is the rose of Seattle, right? And I use that intentionally. That's the rose of Seattle. Right across from it is a very famous coffee shop that started in 1971. You all know it. It's Starbucks, right? So I think what we need to do is collaborate and think about the kind of things that we keep, right? Now, I've been instructed, or as I talk to people around town to find out what's really kind of cool, right? And I was told that because we're a National Historic District, there were some architecturally approved lights and stuff. And I've heard that we actually have those that are designed to go underneath the station that I go under every day. And I guess I would ask the question, where are those? What do we do to put those up? And is there a way that maybe the Borough electrical team could collaborate, right? Just really collaborate, because we're all trying to build value in the city to put those up, right? That would be just awesome. Make it really nice. And then that was the fun thing. Now let's just dig into the hard things, right? That's the science. Okay, so parking. I heard parking. So before I go to that, let's go to the retail space. So in retail space, the units were first on a square foot basis, right? Rent per square foot. And then on the other one, it was vacancies. Now that's a really hard number to grab because you have certain things that skew the distribution. And one thing would be grocery stores. They're huge, right? So if you do it on a per square foot basis, the grocery store is going to really kind of skew that. So you might want to pull those out. And then when I walk the downtown just now, there's some really big buildings that are empty, really big. And they're in the corners, and they're the big ones. They're the big ones. So, and that's what people see. So you might need to think about how do you separate, because it's complex data, how do you separate the big stores that are always going to be filled? Stop and Shop is a great place. That's a big, few thousand, 30, 50, 100, 200,000 square feet. That's going to skew your distribution. How do you get that so it's a normal distribution and make sure that you got the right downtown space? Because when many of us walk downtown,
1 minute.
We see empty spaces, right? And that's the thing that I think is a little bit detracting from the whole space. So those were my the comments. And then on parking, I went to meet a friend on Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I took a day of vacation. I could not find a parking space. 15 minutes. So I'm scratching my head about that 15% vacancy rate. Does that mean that 15% of the spaces are empty? Or does it mean you have a 15% chance of finding the space? I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter. So I ride my bike, so I was there, but I waited for him. He's like trying to find a spot, right? Now, as you mentioned, I love the Venn circles about different retail spaces because these merchants are fighting with Short Hills, right? So we all know if we go to Short Hills, we'll find a spot, right? Because there's, I don't know, how many thousand, 10,000 spaces. I have no idea. So you might have to wait 4 minutes for a spot instead of 6. So as we think about this comprehensive plan, there
We're at time.
Another way to calculate that 15%.
All right. Thank you, Ron. And I guess your one question in there was the lighting on under the railroad overpasses. The DDC has been leading that as far as getting some of that light and working with the electric department, installing some of the lights, which some are up already.
Hey, I'm Janet Ross. I live on Fairwood Road. I've been here almost 20 years now, and I'm a commuter. I'm a worker. I am an accountant, and I work late hours, but I'm commuting in and out of Penn Station now for the last 8 years. And when you're talking about signage and also communication, I love when we have the farmers market here. I need it to be at least to 7 o'clock so that I can get out here, especially since now I never know when I'm going to get home because of the status of the tracks. I would love to have some signage at the station, both in the morning down when I'm getting there and boarding the train, but also, especially at night. Is tonight a farmer's market? Is tonight one of the concerts in town? Right. Because I'm already parked, you know? I'm good. I don't have you guys' problem.
There you go. You got your space.
And I'm tired. I'm probably looking for a bite. I would love to know what's going on, if somebody's got something going on, and even what movie's going on, whatever. But yeah, I guess that's my. I hate being an outsider in my own town.
Janet, just if you're finished, that's fine. I was just going to, for future speakers, I know it's kind of difficult because you want to talk to our presenters. We should be talking to the council, and also keep your mouth closer to the microphone so we can capture it. But I think we caught that great idea of event signage at the train station.
Hi, I'm Pippa Almond. I live on Ridgedale Avenue, and I just want to make two points. One really quick one about getting a large store, and the report was concerned, and I used to be a real estate lawyer before I realized that copyright was much more interesting, but that there's restrictions on leasing. But that cannot mean that every possible entity would not be able to be here. So we can't get an Ann Taylor or a Gap. There's many, many more stores that are in either Short Hills nor East Hanover, although I think you could live on Diane Route 10 and be totally fine forever. And Livingston, and I think that that's something that should be explored. I'm not saying we need like a big chain store, but I think there are things that would attract people to downtown, and we shouldn't dismiss that right out of hand. My bigger sort of question and concern about the whole plan is this idea of more singles and couples housing to create revitalization downtown. So we have, on Ridgedale, we had a bunch of multi-million-dollar condos, which took a really long time to sell, which you may or may not know. There's a whole bunch coming into townhouses coming in, not only on Green Village Road, Kings Road, which looks like a huge monstrosity, and then also on Park. Who's buying these? I mean, I don't know what the target is. I don't know many single couples who are buying multi-million-dollar townhomes. And if those people are coming to Madison, if they're looking to commute, right now we don't have enough commuter parking as it is, and people don't walk if it's raining or whatever. They want that permit in case they're carrying stuff or whatever. And New Jersey Transit's a mess. I mean, it's a complete nightmare. So to bring more people in, and the number said 500, and there's already, as I said, a bunch in the pipeline, to take overtaxed resources to their absolute limit seems like a really poor use of Madison and a way to move away from historic, quaint, nice, downtown family Madison and into I'm not sure what.
Thank you. And just to clarify, again, it was a suggestion that there is a need out there for 500. Whether we want to take that on or not is a lot of big
right,
discussion.
But we're already adding and adding and adding.
Yep. Thank you.
Teresa Romano, West Lane, Madison. Again, I agree, great presentation, lots of information. One thing that I didn't hear was the Kings Road project that's going up and the retail space that's going to be in there. How is that going to compete or not compete with downtown space? Because there still is a lot of vacancies downtown. So are people going to go in there versus downtown, which is something we're been trying to...
I'll answer that. Yeah, well, I've captured that.
And my other issue is parking has always been on the top of my list. If I can't park, I can't shop, I can't eat, I can't do anything if I can't find a parking space. I try to come into town lunchtime, and I can't find any place. It's too far to walk and get back to my office in time. Parking has always been an issue. And The other point I wanted to make is the Rose City. I think there's many people in town whose parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents worked in the rose industry in Madison. I think you need to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you. So to answer the question about retail at the Green Village Road School development, as a redevelopment project, there was various options as far as the amount of retail, and it was very interesting. Virtually every developer that came in and presented said, we would not want to expand retail that would dilute the downtown. So what is going in there is a single restaurant, and the other space will be Madison's community space, which will be run by the borough, providing art, music, other presentations. Could be an indoor farmers market in the winter months, but so that's the only thing going on there that's non-residential.
Hi, my name is Pat Luciano. We have been merchants in this town for over 100 years, and I think I qualify to say a few words here tonight. I think Jimmy Burnett should be the downtown manager. I got a new job for you, Jim. Retail rents are too high. Well, I don't know about that because the taxes are very high. So one goes with the other. I think that we should definitely, I don't know if your company revamped the program that we showed the mayor about 3 or 4 times about behind the Central Avenue School. I hope they're not waiting till some child gets hit on the corner down there instead of letting them get into their cars inside the school, and we use the 66 spaces that could possibly be there on property we already own. This has been pushed around for about 20 years, and I don't know why we don't give it a shot. It's unbelievable. We have the property. We could do it with our own men. So I think that should be looked at. Other things that I've talked about through the years is the cleanliness and the maintenance of the Cook Avenue parking lot. My uncle and my father gave that to the town many, many years ago. At least we can do is keep it up. There are potholes. It needs to be revamped. It has to be cleaned. Every year in May, they put mulch around, and that's the extent of the beautifying the Cook Avenue parking lot. So it really should be taken into consideration. There should be roses in there or bushes or something. Bad enough, and if you go to the long section here by where the old YMCA was, it's atrocious. I mean, it's absolutely out of sight. It looks like it should be 50 years ago. That all has to be cleaned out and straightened up. But I think the report tonight was very good. I enjoyed it. There were a lot of good things that I think we can add to our town. But we got to get going on this maintenance and keeping these parks and everything clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Some very good comments there. And Cook Avenue parking lot needs some attention, so we'll make sure that's on the list.
That's okay. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Mary Ellen Lenahan. I live on Greenwood. I'm also co-chair with Janet Foster of the Historic Preservation Commission. And I thought the report was very thorough and very good, and it raised many good issues. As co-chair of the HPC, I mean, you already know that what you were talking about in terms of the downtown district is an historic area, so anything we do down there needs to be reviewed. The other thing I thought about was one of the threads throughout the report was how different groups may not be working or communicating with each other to know everything that's going on. And I think that's key. The last thing I mentioned is Rose City. I agree. I think Rose City is a big part of the heritage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's David Steinman, live on Hoyt Street, 18-year resident. One of the points that was discussed, I was also able to participate in one of the residents' focus groups, that this was a study that was mainly focused on, I believe, the 2 or 3 block corridor known as downtown, and not the, I'm sorry, and not focused on the entire commercial corridor, which includes King, Cook, and on to 300 Main Street. Is that correct?
It's central business district, so not so Cook would be assumed in there, but not the eastern end of Madison would be the kind of separating.
There's lots of opportunities in that space. There's retailers, viable retailers, parking at 300 Main Street. If that were incorporated into the parking discussion, or the ability to move around town without needing a vehicle, with some type of a shuttle that ran through town, sponsored by the DDC, that went to each of the gateways, would help extend opportunities to park outside of downtown, but make it convenient for people to get into downtown. So the other comment on that is in terms of the signage and other things, beautification, other things that are being discussed, I'd be concerned about leaving those retailers out of those opportunities of signage. There was also a discussion of changing the zoning in the downtown district to allow additional floors, which would encourage business. And I would be very concerned about continuing to increase the density in Madison, the use of our services, the impact that has on parking, which I don't think is a solved issue. Everybody's brought that up. It's a concern for me, too. And I think that solution needs to be something along the lines of shuttles to get people there, parking that makes it easy to get there in the prime hours that people are competing for parking, and more variety in town. I think we have repeat types of services, or there's different genres of shopping and not enough choices. I think, Bob, you mentioned also the growth that is happening in Florham Park along Park Avenue. There's a condominium complex that's being built now. There's hospitals. There's a long-stay and short-term hotel that's being built now, and I believe there were plans for that property for an adult community, which I assume is still on their agenda. And again, because parking challenge is that when everyone wants to be in town to have a meal, somebody who's working in a commercial building and has a short time for lunch, they're not going to spend a lot of time circling town looking for something to eat. So I think we need to find ways of encouraging outside revenue into town rather than just always depending on the residents, help our tax base, and make it easy for them to come in, whether it's working with a Grubhub type service or a common delivery service that the merchants coordinate with, or again, I still think there's something we need to do to bring those people in and make the parking situation a bit easier with a shuttle or whatever that might be.
And got 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So some of the things we captured there, suggestions, shuttle, your concern about adding the floor, the density that will create, and what creative things can we do to get the development of Park Avenue into town. Thank you. Welcome.
Buonasera. So my name is Paolo. I'm one of the owners of Healthy Italia, the Italian cooking school and specialty store on 55 Main Street. I just want to share with you my experience. We've been open for 1 year, and I have some concerns that I want to share with you, and some ideas also. The first concern is that we get a lot of people from outside Madison, so this is good for the community. They always tell me we don't know where to park. So besides the parking spots, there's no signage. I mean, they go crazy. They say Main Street, Waverly. There's nothing. And they pull over. They say, where can I park? We have to go outside and instruct them where to park. That's a problem. I think it should be solved with a better signage. The other thing I would like to ask you is a better marketing, as they mentioned, because after 1 year, I still have 50-60% of the people in Madison, they don't even know I exist. They don't even know that we are open. So I think, how can a resident of Madison, how can, doesn't know like that we are there, that we offer an experience, a cooking school, a specialty store. So I would like Madison to have a better marketing for their residents. The other thing, I really like the idea of having like a little square or a plaza or piazza, as we say in Italy, where people can gather together. Because my shop and my cooking school is going really well and successful because we offer something different that they cannot find anywhere else. So why don't we offer, as Madison, why don't we offer something different and people cannot find in other towns? For example, I live in Morristown, and Morristown there's a nice park they call Green. People gather there, they have a coffee, they shop, they sit, they relax. Why don't we try to find a solution to have this gathering area in Madison, maybe on Waverly, or I don't know, you better than I, you know better than I do, but some areas where people can relax, shop. There's no problem, cars are back and forth. That could be another option. And I think we love it here. Madison, it's a really cute town. I decided to open here because it reminded me of Italy and our old towns. So that's why I picked Madison. But I think you should be focusing on giving to Madison residents, but also to people that are coming out from outside, something unique that they cannot find anywhere else.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So some things I captured there was, which we know pretty well, the parking signage, the overall marketing theme, and reinforcing the need for a gathering place. And I want to commend you on your business that really shows new type of downtown, a retail and cooking school and those sort of combinations.
How are you? My name's Andrew Jeffries. I live on Sampson Avenue. The only comment I really had goes back to early, and Councilmember Rowe sort of had some questions on it too. The numbers about money that's leaving town versus coming to town, and some of the more quantitative data in the study, and it's more a technical question that you guys can answer later. It might be in the study, but I was floored, frankly, on the numbers that was showing that we had surplus of restaurant and money, but drinking, it boggles my mind because I was fortunate enough to take place in the focus groups. Everything that was said in that is that it wasn't even close to good. Not even close. And maybe this is where it's coming into. I just want to make sure. Quality over quantity numbers. It may not say we need it, but as capitalism would tell you, if you add it, everything else is going to get better. So one of the things our focus group and everybody in my social circle in Madison talks about is there's just no vitality in town. I go to Morristown. I'm part of that $18 million that leaves town for restaurants and drinking establishments. Not because I want to drink a bunch. It's fun. Sure, we're good there. But it's because it's at least got energy. Something new is in. Even if the restaurant's going to be bad, and I heard it's bad, they say, but it's fun. There's a new restaurant. Whatever it is, nothing's changed in this town restaurant-wise that's anywhere close to modern or good. I've been here for 7 or 8 years now, on and off, but that's my comment, is that I hope it's not just analytics of, oh, we've got surplus of restaurant or bar, we don't need that. By all means, please, I think that's the only thing we need. We don't need retail. We don't need service. It's bars and restaurants will get people in town to do that. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Don Brunner, 20 Redmond Drive. I would suggest looking into a parking garage for Cook Avenue. That's all.
Thank you. Short and sweet. 11 seconds. Well,
I will be quick. I won't be that quick, unfortunately. I just want to say for the record, the retailers and the business.
Actually, for the record, start with your name.
I was doing a preamble, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
John Morris, I'm the current president of the Madison Area Chamber of Commerce. We're an independent nonprofit group of businesses and nonprofits who are to advocate and promote for our own business interests and the economic vitality of this town since 1943. I just want to say from our members, about 180 of them altogether, I want to thank this body, Mayor, all of you, and Council in the past and going forward for all the support, for your time and your concern and your caring about the downtown district. Downtown district does a lot for this community. It isn't necessarily just an economic engine, which it will continue to be with employment, paying taxes, and all the rest. It's also a very caring group who donates time, their goods, their services to make life better in this town for everyone. So it isn't just about commerce, it's about what commerce does that's important. And that's why we appreciate what you do, because you are leaders, you make things happen, and we'll continue to do so. And thank you so much for commissioning the study and for funding it along with the PBC, our friends there. It's a wonderful experience that will continue. This is not the end, this is we keep the conversation going. God knows where we'll all go. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And it is partnerships, it was said in the report of how well people step forward in Madison, and our Chamber of Commerce is example, because I would put our chamber up against anyone in the state as far as active and making things happen and really working with businesses. So great job. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. So we have a lot of work to do. It's DDC. It's in the hands of the DDC. It's in the hands of Ben. I assume the committee will work to.
We'll be back.
To make sure this is not just a report, that this is a action plan.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. Now we are. For those that want to stay, we're moving to reports from committees, and we will start with Public Works and Engineering. Ms. Vitale.
Okay, I'll go quickly.
Or maybe we'll.
Good luck. Oh my God. Let them all go.
We'll hold. Yep.
I'll read the voucher.
Well, yep.
I don't think they listen. I can read the voucher. Wow. No one listens anyways.
Right.
What's a good time of day for you? Can I call you?
Again, as people are leaving, a reminder that we do have to finish up the meeting, and the hallways echo. So please talk. We gave you a lot of conversation to talk about, but keep it quiet until you get outside the building. And with respect to the hour and the fact that we've lost most of our audience, how about if we keep our committee reports to anything that is very time sensitive and high priority. So, again, DPW and Engineering, Ms. Vitale, for the edited report.
Okay, very important. This week, May 15th, we start a twice-a-week garbage pickup, which I think is totally awesome, very important. A lot of people forgot about it.
Yep.
So Roselli Brothers was driving up and down the streets and not picking up any garbage. Another very good thing that's happening, the bleachers are being installed at the MRC. Everything is moving along very nicely. And this week they're putting out the flower baskets. So all of that has been done. They're always busy. This is the parks are the big high priority for DPW. From engineering, I think probably the biggest thing that Bob wanted to talk about was actually, the bleachers going in. And they're working with Rose City Electric and Green Park to install conduits for the electric power to the new press box as well, and that should be completed all this week. Cifelli and Son has been out there. They're working like crazy. They're doing all kinds of road improvements but they're also working on all the sidewalks, and they're doing an absolutely great job. They're just moving along. That's it.
Thank you very much. And Public Safety, Mr. Landrigan.
This will be quick. From the fire department, on Friday, May 19th, the firefighters participated in the Madison High School's Day of Service. Approximately 12 students spent the day at the firehouse learning about fire safety and helping cleaning ladders and other equipment. Some students tried the department's confidence course to get a feel for what a real firefighter must do when fighting a fire. On Saturday, May 20th, Madison firefighters attended a hands-on class in Neptune, New Jersey titled Man vs. Machine, part 2 of a class they took in February. Okay, from the police department, on May 11th, 2017, at 1:30 p.m., the Madison Police Department received training on the newly installed LoJack recovery system. By 5 p.m. the same day, the system alerted Sergeant Plumstead of a stolen vehicle in the area he was patrolling on the east end of town. Using the LoJack system, the sergeant was able to track down the exact location of the vehicle in Chatham Borough. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. And Finance Borough Clerk, Ms. Bailey.
Now, I'm going to abbreviate mine too then. Finance Department report. The auditors are here at Hartley Dodge, and their final audit is expected later in the year. In addition, we have a claim inventory will be here later this week to perform a fixed asset inventory at the Borough. This includes the vehicles, the computers, equipment, and the like. A barcode tag is placed on all items and a report is created. This is a state statute mandate. From the payroll department, the conversion from our prior software provider to a new provider, PrimePoint, has been completed without a hitch, and we'd like to thank Sandy Emmerich and Linda Sawyer for their leadership with this project. And an update on the electric utility dividend from the utility billing department. To date, 22 out of the 28 meter reading routes have been billed, and so far the borough has issued $82,332.77 in electric utility dividend credits to our utility customers. As a reminder, you do not need to do anything to get this dividend. The credit will be automatically applied to your bill. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Utilities, Mr. Wolkowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. From the Water Department, one note of caution I think is worth starting out with. Our Water Department had to repair a 6-inch water main break on Howell Street, and it was actually due to a contractor error in the use of a fire hydrant. The note of caution is, if for any reason you need to use a fire hydrant, I can't imagine what it is, but if you ever do, please call the Water Department before you take it on your own to do it. I'm not quite sure how this broke, but a word of caution, right? The Water Department personnel attended training sessions for an upcoming monitoring rule for unregulated contaminants. This is a New Jersey requirement that will go into effect next year, so they're ready to go. And also the generator contractor, EMR, serviced all of our emergency generators in town. So as we get into a period of higher water usage, we have good backup in case anything were to happen to the main systems. The other stuff has been relocating and marking underground utilities and curb boxes, etc. The electric department's has begun removing the old underground cables on Kings Road, and they're laying out new street lighting. And that'll be consistent with the rest of Kings Road, i.e. the older and nicer looking fixtures. They installed and transferred a couple of poles on Greenwood and did the same on Shunpike. They installed current transformers in a meter socket for a new transformer at Ewell, and they completed a pole transfer on Lewanica Way. One other thing, I think it came up in an earlier session, someone had asked about Dewell. And I thought we had actually finished that project. It turns out we're not quite finished, but we should certainly be finishing it again before peak water usage season begins. Thank you.
And Health, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple quick events. First, the men's cancer screening is going to be on Monday, June 5th at 6 p.m. The women's screening is scheduled for Monday, June 5th, beginning at 10 a.m. in the morning. There's also a comprehensive metabolic screening scheduled for Tuesday, June 1st, beginning at 8 a.m. please call the Health Department to schedule an appointment. And also, the Board of Health has introduced an ordinance that is addressing the licensing of massage, bodywork, and somatic therapy establishments. A public hearing will be at the June 20th meeting at the Board of Health at the Civic Center. And the Health Department and the Board of Health are collaborating on methods addressing the sensitive topic of free roaming and feral cats and their impact on our neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Community Affairs, Ms. Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. The Rights for Seniors continues to pick up seniors. As of this week, 160 people are registered for the program. 15 students from Madison High School helped 12 Madison seniors with spring yard cleanup and chores for their annual day of service, while 10 students came to the senior center to learn to make teacaps. Doubts about using a sewing machine. None of the students had ever seen a sewing machine. Were dispelled when the students sat down with the volunteers, and by the end of the day, 100 caps had been made, and they were delivered to the Carol Simon Cancer Center. And as a final note, Edna Irely Byrne retired today. Sarah Keffer, who has been adopted by all the senior citizens at the senior center, begins her tenure as the senior center coordinator tomorrow, Tuesday. From the DDC and the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber Annual Awards Dinner is scheduled for Monday, June 5th at the Madison Hotel. The Madison Farmers Market opening day will be Thursday, June 1st. It's the 25th season of the market, and it's located on Central Avenue between Main Street and Cook Avenue, and will run from the 1st through Thursday, October 26th, which is an additional 2 weeks. We have extended hours this year. Market hours are from 2 until 7, so if you catch the early train out of Penn Station, you should be able to make it. And the Chamber fire extinguisher inspection, like about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The Madison Chamber of Commerce will hold its biannual fire extinguisher inspections on Tuesday, June 6th from 12 until 4. The location for the inspections are the corner of Central and Main. The fee for extinguisher tagging is $15. Chamber members pay a discounted rate of $10. The program is open to all Madison businesses and residents. New and refurbished extinguishers will be available for purchase at a discounted price. And finally, I thought it might be interesting to get some information about the website. For RoseNet, the number of website views between May 1st and today, May 22nd, was 4,771 hits, which is pretty good. The top 3 downloads this month so far are the recycling newsletter, the 2017 household hazardous waste events, and the May 12th Borough bylines. So people are reading the bylines. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. All right. There are no ordinances for hearing, so we're on to our final invitation for discussion. For those left in the audience, this is when you may comment on anything. Again, the same rules apply. State your name, your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. And there are no ordinances to be introduced, so consent agenda resolutions.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move Resolution 158-2017 to Resolution 165-2017.
Second.
Any discussion or any that need to be pulled for separate? Roll call vote.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfwood?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
The current fund, $2,839,910.33. General capital fund, $266,401.53. Electric operating fund, $1,015,702.70. Water operating fund, $27,221.35. Water Capital Fund, $24,186.20. The trust for $43,886.43. The total is $4,217,290.54.
Mayor, I move approval of the vouchers.
Second it.
Yeah, I had spoken to Ray about this beforehand. I had sent a note to Jim, but he didn't get a chance to read it. I'd like to pull the one where we're paying for the Memorial Park skating rink. I had been by there last week, and I still don't think we're getting the grass growing the way we expect it to. And I'd like to make sure before we pay this that the work has been done properly. This is the second time we're going around on this.
We're fine with that. Okay, so we'll amend the motion to approve. We won't do the math on it, but
you need the specific voucher.
I think it would just state the Rosedale Avenue Field voucher.
Okay, thank you.
That's important.
It's a voucher.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a.
That's an amended.
Yep. So I have a second. Okay. Roll call vote.
Mr. Landerkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Yes.
There is no new business.
Mayor, I move we adjourn.
In favor? Meeting adjourned.
Let me see.
Yeah, I know. This is a long meeting for us. Oh, yeah. It's something that was supposed to be short, right? With nothing there?
Matt, you were talking too much today, though. I think you need to cut back. We don't pay you to talk.
Recreate, Rose, that really upsets me because we did a lot of effort to try
I know.
It's not going to.
I understand that.
to do the break.
Believe me, I had multiple.
But I have.
Do we need to apply?
And